Spain, a land forged in fire and blood, a kingdom born of conquest, revolution, and divine ambition. For more than 1,000 years, monarchs have ruled this proud nation, some noble, some ruthless, all unforgettable. But among them, 10 rose above the rest. 10 kings whose legacies shaped the course of history. This is their story, a journey through power, glory, betrayal, and immortality. These are the 10 greatest kings in the history of Spain. Number 10. King Alfonso X. The Wise of 1252 to 1284. In an age of war and superstition, Alfonso X ruled not only with the sword, but with the mind. Known as El Sabio, the Wise, he transformed the kingdom of Castile into a beacon of learning. His court became a sanctuary for scholars, Christian, Muslim, and Jewish, working together to translate the great works of antiquity into Castilian. Under his patronage, the famous Alphonsine tables were created, mapping the stars with astonishing precision. He championed science, literature, and music, elevating Castile's cultural status across Europe. But Alfonso's genius was not limited to the arts. He codified laws in the monumental Siete Partidas, a legal foundation that would influence Spanish law for centuries. He dreamed of greater things, of being crowned Holy Roman Emperor, and for a time it seemed within reach. Yet internal rebellions and noble resistance shattered that dream. His own son betrayed him. Alfonso died in exile, heartbroken, but his legacy lived on, not in thrones or crowns, but in knowledge, which would outlast them all. Number 9. King Ferdinand II of Aragon, 1479 to 1516. Ferdinand was not just a ruler, he was half of a force of nature. Alongside his formidable wife, Queen Isabella of Castile, he formed one of history's most powerful political unions, the Catholic monarchs. Together they completed the Reconquista, ending nearly 8 centuries of Muslim rule with the fall of Granada in 1492. That same year, they changed the world forever by sponsoring Christopher Columbus. Their vision expanded Spain beyond Europe, to the Americas and beyond. Ferdinand was a strategist, shrewd, pragmatic, and deeply calculating. After Isabella's death, he ruled as regent, manipulating alliances, crushing rebellion, and securing Spain's dominance. But his reign was also marked by darkness, the brutal Spanish Inquisition, and the expulsion of the Jews. A man of faith, power, and contradiction, Ferdinand forged a united Spain, an empire in the making. His legacy? A kingdom ready to conquer the world. Number 8. King Charles III, 1759 to 1788. When Charles III ascended the throne, Spain was fading. Corruption, stagnation, and decay had gripped the nation. But Charles was different. Enlightened, reform-minded, and deeply practical, he began to modernize Spain with fierce determination. He improved infrastructure, opened roads, supported science, cleaned the cities, and strengthened the navy. He brought streetlights to Madrid in order to the bureaucracy. Under his rule, Spain became cleaner, smarter, and stronger. He was no warmonger, but a reformer. He resisted the church's overreach, curtailed noble excess, and encouraged agriculture and industry. Historians often call him the best mayor of Madrid, but he was more than that. He was a monarch who laid the groundwork for a modern nation. Charles III restored dignity and purpose to the Spanish crown at a time when Europe was teetering on revolution. Number 7. King Philip II, 1556 to 1598. The empire of Philip II was vast. So vast, in fact, that the sun never set upon it. From the Americas to the Philippines, named after him, from Milan to Mexico, Philip ruled with divine authority. He was the Catholic king, pious, intense, and deeply devoted to his faith. He built the austere monastery palace of El Escorial, a symbol of Spain's might in his own ascetic rule. Under Philip, Spain reached the zenith of its global power, but also began its long decline. His most infamous act was launching the Spanish Armada against England, a disastrous campaign that weakened his grip on the seas. Yet he was tireless. He crushed revolts in the Netherlands, resisted Ottoman expansion, and spread Catholic orthodoxy with unyielding will. He was both visionary and tyrant, ruler and prisoner of his own ambition. The burden of empire, it seemed, was heavier than any crown. Number 6, King Charles V, 1516 to 1556. Grandson of Ferdinand and Isabella, Charles inherited more than just Spain. He was also the Holy Roman Emperor, ruling over a patchwork of European territories. No king in Spanish history held more power. He battled the Protestant Reformation, fought the French, and clashed with the Ottomans. He presided over the conquest of the Aztec and Inca empires, an age of blood and treasure. But the empire wore him down. Constant wars, endless political maneuvering, and the weight of responsibility broke his spirit. In a moment of rare humility, Charles abdicated the throne, dividing his empire between his brother and his son. He retired to a monastery and lived out his days in contemplation. Charles V ruled an empire larger than any before him, yet found peace not in power, but in solitude. Number 5. King Juan Carlos I, 1975 to 2014. In modern Spain, one king towers above the rest, Juan Carlos III. Appointed by dictator Francisco Franco, many feared he would uphold authoritarianism. But Juan Carlos defied expectations. When Franco died, Spain stood on the edge of uncertainty. But Juan Carlos embraced democracy, guided the nation through transition, and supported the drafting of a new constitution. In 1981, when a military coup threatened to destroy it all, he stood firm. On national television, dressed in full military uniform, he denounced the rebellion and demanded the return of democratic order. The coup failed, and Juan Carlos became a hero. For decades, he symbolized Spain's rebirth. Though his later years were tarnished by scandal, his legacy remains, the monarch who saved Spanish democracy. Number 4, King Alfonso XIII, 1886 to 1931. Born as king, Alfonso XIII's life was a paradox. He came to the throne at birth and grew into a restless, hands-on ruler. His reign saw the loss of Spain's last colonies, Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and a rising tide of social unrest. He struggled to balance modernization with monarchy, order with liberty. Alfonso supported aviation, modernization, and international diplomacy, but he also aligned himself with authoritarian generals. The dictatorship of Primo de Rivera, backed by Alfonso, brought stability at first. But the people wanted democracy, and when the winds of change blew, Alfonso fled. The Republic was declared. His monarchy ended not with an execution or war, but with exile. A complex, controversial figure, Alfonso XIII ruled at the twilight of empire and the dawn of something new. Number 3, King James I of Aragon, 1213 to 1276. Known as James the Conqueror, he expanded the crown of Aragon more than any king before or after. At just 5 years old, he inherited the throne. By the time he died, he had taken the Balearic Islands, Valencia, and huge swaths of territory from Muslim rule. He was not just a warrior, but a legislator, a reformer, and a writer. James restructured laws, encouraged trade, and maintained peace among his nobles. His conquests were marked by both ferocity and diplomacy. He negotiated with popes and clashed with Moors. He wrote his own autobiography, a rare act for a medieval king. He was bold, brilliant, and relentless. His sword carved out a Mediterranean empire, and his wisdom kept it intact. Number 2, King Philip V, 1700 to 1746. The first Bourbon king of Spain, Philip V ascended to the throne after a brutal war, the War of Spanish Succession. He was just 17 when he inherited a crumbling empire. But Philip brought change. He centralized the Spanish state, reformed the army, streamlined administration, and restored royal authority. He introduced French ideas of governance, creating a more efficient monarchy. Though his reign was plagued by mental illness and periods of instability, he laid the foundation for modern Spain. Under his rule, Spain regained lost prestige, secured overseas colonies, and reasserted its place on the European stage. He ruled longer than any Spanish monarch before him, 46 years of transformation, ambition, and resilience. Number 1. Queen Isabella I of Castile, reigned 1474 to 1504. Though not a king, she deserves this spot. No list of Spanish monarchs is complete without Isabella. Though a queen, she wielded power equal to any king, and arguably more. With Ferdinand, she unified Spain. But it was her will, her vision, and her faith that drove the great turning points of history. The Reconquista, Columbus's voyage, the Spanish Inquisition, all bore her mark. She was brilliant, devout, and unshakable. Her reforms stabilized Castile. Her marriage reshaped Europe. And her name lives on, Isabel the Catholic, the mother of modern Spain. She was a ruler of destiny whose decisions would change the world forever.